Greetings and welcome to video lesson number 4, Basic Single Track Editing. In this video, you will learn how to remove unwanted audio from a recording, which is the bulk of what you will do in audio editing. Later on, we will get into more techniques, but this is the bread and butter of editing. So let's start by importing a file into Cakewalk as we learned in the last lesson. With Cakewalk up and running, select New Project, and then Empty Project. Now, if you already closed that window, just go up to File, then hit New, and then click OK, because it doesn't matter what those settings are. So from here, let's take a look at our file settings, or our file parameters rather. So let's go to File, Import, Audio. Okay, now I find the location of where these are stored on my computer, and I'm going to look at my first file. I come down to where it says attributes. Okay, this one says 44.1 kilohertz and it's 16-bit. It's stereo if that matters, so just keep in mind it's stereo, so you'll see two waveforms even though it's only one track. So this is what I want. So I'm just going to go ahead and cancel that. The reason I'm going to cancel that, if you come up here, you'll notice it says 44.1 and 24, but I just need 44.1 and 16. You don't hurt anything by using a higher, you're just frankly wasting more memory. So from here I go File, File, New. Then in these parameters I can change my bit depth back to 16. And I want to select Empty Project, otherwise it'll give me some bonus tracks that have nothing to do with what I want. So 44.1, 16, Empty Project, and I hit OK. Okay, so now it says 44.1, 16. Now I am good to go. I definitely want to get rid of this snap to grid, as well as that doesn't matter. And I'm going to come over here and get rid of these two things on the sides. Okay, so let's go back here and actually go to File, Import, Audio. And I come back to my same file. But this time, I'll go ahead and hit OK. 44.116, that's what it says. Now, of course, it comes in as a tiny file, or as a tiny display, so I can come down over to here, and I can try to maximize this, or I can just click anywhere out here. Just press the letter F as in Frank on the keyboard, and voila, everything's nice and big. Now, you see where my cursor is at? If I would have had the cursor there when I import, it may actually bring your audio off to the side. So you can hit the Go to Start button, make sure your audio's there. Now, before I do anything else here, I do want to make sure I'm going to make it easy on myself. My default settings is this timeline across the top is actually done in measures. And by default, my clock here is actually done in frames per second and not fractions or decimal points of a second. So let me just... Let me come to my timeline. I'm going to come to time ruler format. Now this top one, measures, beats, and timing, that's what it defaults to. The hours, minutes, the second one is hours, minutes, seconds, and frames, not fractions. That's what the clock up here currently says. The problem with this one is frames, there's 30 frames per second because that's based on video. So a video editor would love this particular setting. For us, it's going to be a lot easier to use milliseconds. Milliseconds is going to display it more like a stopwatch. So now that I've got that set to milliseconds, much easier to read, I'm going to come up here to the clock itself, right-click on the clock, and I get the same options, and I'm going to come down to milliseconds. Okay, so now it says I got actual millisecond display. Okay, so now my project, I've imported it, I've got my stuff set up. I'm at STR edit, so that's why everything looks the way it should. So now I'm going to save my project. So I'll come up to File, and Save As. And I'm going to store my entire Cakewalk session in here. Now because this is a video project, I've got a few extra files that you wouldn't have. I've already got a previous attempt at recording this voiceover that didn't go so well. I'm going to rename this one Video Lesson 4. Actually 4-3, my third attempt. And I hit save. Okay, and then you notice up here in the upper left, it says in brackets, video lesson 4-3. There's no asterisk afterwards, so I have not made any changes since my last attempt. Okay, so this is basically where we left it off at the end of the previous video on how to import and how to set things up. So now we are officially ready to go. When making edits, there's two basic things you're going to do. One is removing unwanted audio, and the other is moving the remaining audio around. So before we do anything else, let's just take a listen to what this track is so we know kind of what we're doing. We're not going to listen to the whole thing. Let's just listen to the first part to kind of get an idea of what we need to do. So I'm going to hit play. I can come up here on the very top. You'll see these probably somewhat familiar looking buttons. One says play, pause. This is the single black triangle. I can hit that one for play and pause, or I can just use the space bar on the keyboard. I like to use the space bar. It's a big, huge button. Just for visual purposes, I'll use this one up here so you'll know when I do it. But let's just listen to this one.
Number 1, take 3. Aren't we living in strange times right now? Being quarantined in our houses without schools open, malls closed, even parks closed so that kids won't congregate.
Okay, so I got an idea of what I'm up against. And like with most recordings, there's a little extra audio in the very beginning just as they're getting set. Maybe a take number. This is my third take, or just getting set to make the recording. But in our final product, we don't want that. So we're going to get rid of that. The way we're going to do that is we're going to come up to here on the top bar. We're going to press the Select tool. Now I can also press the F6 key on my keyboard. F6 will then toggle between the Select key and whatever else I had previously selected, which I think was a Select key. And the other button I'm going to use is the Move tool, which is F7. And again, F7 will toggle between the Move tool and whatever else you had selected. And use my Select tool. Now what I'm going to do is I notice right about here, let's kind of put my cursor there, right about here. So just before the 5-second mark, 4.9 seconds in, that's about where this clip starts talking. So let's just confirm that and listen to it again.
Number 1, take 3. Aren't we living in strange...
Yep, so I want to start somewhere here. I don't need to take it all the way up to, like, the very nanosecond before. I don't need to take it up to, say, there. It'd be fine to come somewhere, back here a little ways. I'm just going to randomly pick somewhere about here. So what I'm going to do, let's not select that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to find somewhere here where my cursor is now. And I'm going to find where I want to start, and I'm going to hold down, not just one-time click, I'm going to hold down the left mouse button. And then I'm going to start dragging the mouse towards the direction of what I want to get rid of. In this case, I want to get rid of everything, so I'm going to go back to the very beginning, even just slightly past the very beginning. When everything is highlighted that I want to get rid of, then at this point, I let go of the left mouse button. And at that point, you notice up here in the top, this turns to a light gray. It's got this green around it. That highlights what I'm going to manipulate next. In this case, I want to delete it. So because I want to get rid of all that, it's already highlighted. I'm not pressing anything on the mouse or the keyboard. So at this point, I can just press the delete key on the keyboard, and that entire highlighted section will be eliminated. I will do that right now. And there, voila, it's gone. So now when I go back to the very beginning, which is this button right here, you got a rewind button here or start stop. This one here says go to start. Notice I can also use control. I can hold down control and press the home key on the keyboard. Just to make it visual, click on that. Now I'm back here. So now when I play this back, all of this beginning audio that I don't need, all of that will be gone. And there it is, the nice sound of silence.
Aren't we living in strange times right now?
Okay, that's great. I've made my first edit. I needed that to be gone. I can do something at this point. I can save my project now that I've made a correction. There's a couple different ways you can do this. One is you can just keep saving over top itself. One thing I like to do is now that I have, my video lesson 4-3 or whatever you want to call your file, I'd like to go to my Save As. And here's my video lesson 4.3. That's what I'm using. Remember, I saved that before I made any changes. So that's the file. It's all set up. It's ready to go, but it's completely raw. It's completely unedited. So what I can do is I can make another one. I can give it, a letter A or B or, some other letters afterwards. I can maybe do another hyphen with something else. Sometimes I'll use the letter V for version 2. In this case, I'll just call it V2 for version 2 edited. Okay, so this is a second version where I've made some level of edits. The advantage of doing this is I can do this to experiment. For example, if I'm coming up against a tough edit, I'll save it just beforehand. I'll make a bunch of attempts. If my attempts are of no progress or might even actually make it worse, I can then revert back to this previous save and continue on as if none of that ever happened. So I'm going to go ahead and make this save, just so I have another version of it. And again, I'll look up here, video lesson 4-3, version 2 edited, and I can rename these, edited or test. I can call them whatever I want to. It really doesn't matter. But I do like to put them in sequence so I know I'll have V2, version 2, version 3, up to whatever I have at the end. But now that I have all this blank space, I put my cursor at about where we're going to start. 4.665, so basically 4 2/3 seconds into my recording is when my audio starts. Well, I don't want it to start that far into it. I want it to start near the beginning. I'm going to add some music and stuff later on, but that's a different process. What I want is just a clean audio. So I want to take all of this audio and move it all the way to the left, all the way to the very beginning. So now I'm going to select the Move tool. I'm going to unclick anywhere in this frame. If I click over here, all I do is move my little cursor around. But if I click over here, I can just tap it. Okay, now it's all selected. Notice what I have up top here. Again, that gray and the green on top. That means everything in here is selected. So I'm going to take all that, and I'm going to hold down the left mouse button. So I'm going to click and hold. And as I do that, I'm going to drag this all the way to the left as far as I want to go, which in my case is going to be all the way to the beginning. So I'm going to go there, maybe even a little past it. Of course, the audio doesn't move, but I can go back to the right. I can go to the left. I'm going to put it where I want to. And once I've got it where I want it, then I let go of the left mouse button. If I just click it once and move the mouse, then nothing moves. I got to click and hold, and then I can take my audio and move it around as I want. Later on in lessons, if we have multiple tracks, I can actually move it from one track down to another if I really want to. For right now, let's just keep it simple, and now I've moved my audio to the very beginning. Now when I come back, I'll say go to start, and now when I listen to it from the very beginning...
Aren't we living in strange times right now?
Okay, now it starts about where I want it to. It's got... what has it got? Let's check my cursor out. So it's, 0.38, so a little under 4/10 of a second. I like to have about a half second of dead space in the beginning. Okay, so that's how you make a cut and how you make an edit. Now let's go towards something a little more challenging. And just to make it easier to see, I'm going to hit my select tool. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to click somewhere outside. So that way nothing is selected. Now, I noticed something earlier on, so let's listen to this again, and let's listen in case there's anything else we want to actually delete or edit. So let's listen to it again.
Aren't we living in strange times right now? Being quarantined in our houses without schools open?
Okay, right there, there's a little bit of a something. I'll put my cursor right there. There's a little something in here. I don't know what it is. Let's listen to that again. I'll start about here, but there's a little sound I don't like. So let's listen to that again.
Being quarantined in our houses without schools open.
Okay, yeah, so right about there's a little bit of something. And again, I'm using the space bar to play and pause. I just find it quicker. Personally, I find it quicker to use a combination of keyboard and mouse. For example, I want to zoom in. So I can use the mouse only. I can come down here to the bottom, and if I use this horizontal timeline, it'll zoom in this way, or I can zoom out. Okay, so I can zoom in and zoom out that way, or I can zoom in and zoom out vertically as well. Another way I can do this is I can press the Alt key, actually press and hold the Alt key on the keyboard. So I'm going to press and hold the Alt key. While the Alt key is held down, I'm going to use the mouse wheel and scroll. I scroll up and hey, I zoom in. I scroll down while holding Alt and I zoom out. I find this a much faster way to edit. Now I can let go of Alt, and now let me come over and press and hold the Control key. So I let go of Alt, I hold down Control, and now I scroll the mouse wheel and I can move my audio or move my display to the left and to the right. I let go of Control, and back we are. So again, something right here, it looks like this little something. I'm going to highlight, use my left mouse button to click and drag over top of it. It looks like that little section there is where my sound is. Just to confirm it, I'm going to hold down Alt, scroll down, zoom out a little bit, use Control, hold down Control, scroll up a little bit, and I'm going to come back over to here. So I think this is what I'm after. So now I'm going to press spacebar and play the audio and see if that's approximately what I'm after.
Being quarantined in our houses without schools.
Okay, that looks like what I'm after. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom back in. That's roughly what I want to get rid of. It's just a quick, either when you open your mouth or some sort of random noise. So it's highlighted and got the gray with green up top. So now I'm just going to press the delete key, and that is gone. Click in there, so nothing's selected. Now I'm going to hold down Alt, scroll down the mouse wheel to zoom back out. I'm going to move my cursor back to before that, and now let's listen to that and see, did I get it, or did I not get all of it, or what am I left with?
Being quarantined in our houses without schools open.
Okay, so I have the sound I got rid of the sound I don't want. I have a tiny bit of a pause in there. So I want to see, can I get rid of that pause? Well, I'm going to zoom back in. Again, hold down Alt, scroll the mouse wheel up. I have this blank space. But again, I can go back to my Move tool, and I can come anywhere in this audio clip. I can press and hold the left mouse button, and I can drag that to the left and get rid of that gap. In fact, I can even go past that and come over to here. Now notice when I do that, if I were to do it here, now I start overwriting. I'm going to cut off some of that old audio, or that existing audio, which I may or may not want to do. In this case, I really don't. So I'm just going to put those two right tight together, right about there, and let go. And just to make it easier, again, I'm going to go back to my Select tool and have nothing selected. Hold down Alt, zoom back out, hold down Control, move over, let go of everything. And now let's try and see what does this sound like now that I've gotten rid of that little sound and gotten rid of the space for it.
Being quarantined in our houses without schools open, malls closed, even parks closed so that kids won't congregate.
Okay, that sounds a lot more natural. It may have only been a tiny pause, but frankly I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I kind of want it to sound right. You may or may not need to be that picky, because if you're just doing a level 1 edit, then someone else may review it after you've made your edits and can do the fine tweaks if you don't want to, or if you're not, or frankly if you just didn't catch something. So now let's go back, just for the sake of editing, let's go back and listen to the whole thing from the beginning. Does the whole thing flow correctly? If that little part did, now I want to hear the whole thing just as my audience is going to hear it.
Aren't we living in strange times right now? Being quarantined in our houses without schools open, malls closed, even parks closed so that kids won't congregate.
Okay, I'll stop it right there just for the purposes of our example. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the audio at the very beginning. I've gotten rid of a little something in the middle. And as you might expect, there's going to be a little bit at the end. So let's go to the very end. So I can click this button here under the record button. Under the red button it says go to end. And of course now I'm a little past where I want to be, so I'm going to hold down Control, scroll my mouse wheel up, and this is the end. Notice I see all this waveform. It looks like someone's talking, then I got this little bit of something afterwards. So chances are there's something I need to get rid of. So I'm going to put my mouse right about here. I see this little pause. There's some pauses in here. Chances are this is where her outro or her sign-off is going to be. So I want to listen to this and figure out, do I need to eliminate something? Now, of course, you as an editor, you're going to listen all the way through. I'm just doing this as an example. You probably want to work from beginning to end. So let's listen to this and see, do I need to edit anything? Zoom in a little bit, adjust it. Let's see, do I need to do anything with the ending here?
This is Lori Sneeman, and I'm passionate about relationships.
Okay, so there is a little sound here at the end. I can see little microscopic movements here that probably don't mean a whole lot, but really it's this part here at the end that's got to go. So I'm going to give myself, she stops talking right about there. I'm going to go to probably somewhere right about here. And I'm just going to highlight. Again, hold down the left mouse button, drag it to highlight what I need. So this section is now highlighted. I can press Delete on the keyboard. And all of that is gone. And I'll click anywhere outside my track. Move my cursor as well just to make it easy. Okay, so I've got rid of that. Now let's go back and listen to it. And say, what does this now sound like?
This is Lori Sneeman, and I'm passionate about relationships.
Okay, so now my ending sounds pretty good. So now if I wanted to, I could come up here and do File, Save As. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, I'll call this V3, my third version. And this is the final. Okay, it's completed. Or you can just save over top the original. Again, it's completely up to you if you need to do this or not. So I go to my end. So now I'm basically 54.5 seconds of total audio. I come back to my beginning. Here's where I'm at. Now I have this beginning portion. I have a second clip. What happens, let me just zoom all the way out. Let's say I want to induce a space. Let's say for some reason I want to have a big pause right here. I can highlight this, move it over, and actually induce a big pause. See what happens if I do this now?
Being quarantined in our houses without schools open.
That's if I wanted to do that. If I don't like it, I just press and hold Control, press Z, and I can just undo all of that. But there are some times maybe you want to add a little space in there for whatever reason. You can add or remove spaces by using the Move tool. But notice when I do that, let's go back to the Move tool. I'm moving my one section here around. I'm going to keep undoing that. But what if I want to take everything in this project? I've only got 2 clips. I've got my later clip, which is basically everything, and my first clip. What if I want to take the entire thing and move it, let's say, for the sake of argument, 2 seconds. I want it to start at the 2-second mark. I want 2 seconds of dead space in the beginning because I'm going to put something else there. Okay? Okay, I want to do that. But I'm only selecting, I'm clicking on each one. Well, let's say I've got not just 2 clips, but let's say for the sake of argument, I've got 10 clips and they're all spaced out just perfectly. And I don't want to adjust all those clips. I want to take the whole collective and move it. What I can do is I can go to my very first clip. Let's say I got nothing selected. I go to the very first one. I select that one. Now I go to the very end to my last clip. Here I just have 2, but let's say I've got a bunch more. I go to the very end one, and I press and hold the Shift key. So while I'm holding down the Shift key, I just click once with the mouse, and now it highlights from wherever the first one is until whatever clip my mouse was on. Again, this is just 2, but if I had a bunch of them, it would select all of them between what I had selected first and where the mouse was at the end. Now that everything's selected, I've got nothing pressed on the mouse or keyboard right now, so nothing's selected. So now I can click anywhere in this highlighted area. I can click in the big clip, press and hold, and now as I drag, it moves everything over. Okay? Or I can move all of it back. And if I wanted to line this up, I can go to the beginning here, zoom way in, look at the top here, say, where's my 2-second mark? Oh, it's right there. Take this entire collective, look at that little counter up there, and go to somewhere roughly 2 seconds. Okay, 2.011. Okay, that's good enough. And everything stayed together. Once I deselect it, now I got to come back and highlight everything. So that's how I can take the entire collective once I've moved all of it. And sometimes you'll find that maybe you wind up taking off more in the beginning, or later on you find something else you edited. These are things you can do much later on if you need to. Okay, so again, just to review, I've got a select tool, or I can use F6. I've got a move tool, or I can use F7. I can zoom in and zoom out down here, or I can just use my keyboard, press down Alt, scroll up to zoom in, or scroll out, mouse wheel down to zoom out. I can let go of Alt. I can hold down the Control key, scroll down, move to the right. While Control is still down, I scroll up on the mouse wheel, and I can scroll back. I can go back and forth. I can make myself dizzy. And these are some of the tools that I can use while I'm editing. So I can do a zoom out, I can do a scroll over, I can zoom in. I can kind of do all these things much quicker with a combination of keyboard and mouse. And then I can press, okay, so as my smart tool, I'll press F7. I go back and forth between my move and my smart tool, or F6. So I can use a combination of keyboard and mouse, or if I'm just a mouse fan, I can use mouse only to do all that. So these are kind of the basics of audio editing that we're going to use. And again, this is just an example track that we used from Lori Schneemann during COVID. The reason this came through as a stereo track is she's using a handheld dictation device. And the handheld device is quite often recording stereo, even though they're really not stereo, but it comes through as stereo. So that's why we see this as a stereo, in case you're kind of curious on that one. And of course, I can use Shift F. Let me just hold down the Shift key and press F. And this will actually zoom to my entire project. So there's the very end, and there's the beginning, including my 2 seconds of dead space that I wanted. And let's say now I change my mind. I want to select this. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to press Shift over here. I'm going to move everything back to the left. I let go of Shift. Come back to the beginning. I'm going to zoom in. Yep, that's what I want. And again, hold on Shift, press F again. Okay, there's my entire project. I can see it all. By coming over here, I can zoom in, zoom out. I can zoom out all the way down to there. I can actually use the Control, I think it's Control and the arrow down. So I hold down Control, and every time I press the down arrow, it gets bigger. Every time I press the up arrow, it gets smaller, or you can just think it kind of goes towards the top. So I can do this. Now I can't go bigger than just full screen. So even with a stereo track, I can't take it down to just one of these two tracks, or one of the two waveforms. It just won't let me do that, which is fine. I don't probably need to zoom in any more than that. And then I can zoom in a little more this way. So these are just things you can do to personalize this. These are just some of the basic techniques that you'll use in audio editing for Strong Tower Radio. There's many more things we'll get into later on, such as if I have multiple audio tracks, if I want to do some more effects, if I need to change the volume, maybe within a track, maybe something's too loud, something's too soft. We'll get into those later on. What we've done here is kind of the basics, what I call the bread and butter of what we do in audio editing, and that is to remove something that's unwanted and then, if necessary, adjust the audio. There are some times that you'll need to remove things, such as if a person's breathing a bit loudly, you may want to remove the sound of the breath, but you may or may not want to adjust the gap that you create, because the person does pause, and if you take all those pauses out, it'll be a run-on sentence of however long they speak for, and that'll sound unnatural as well. So sometimes if there's breathing that needs to be removed, you may remove the breath but leave the gap there, or you maybe shorten it up just a little bit. Kind of use your judgment, use your ears. And that's when I like to go back and listen to a longer section of audio just to make sure on context, does it sound natural? Because that's one of the biggest things you want to do is you want your recording to sound natural. So although breathing is natural, it can be distracting. So depending on how loud the breathing is, tells me whether or not I want to actually leave it in or not. But that's going to be it for video lesson number 4. This is just basic single track editing. We'll get into more techniques later on. I hope this video lesson was useful for you, and we'll see you in the next video.